Hello class, welcome to Alvy World. I'm your host, Mr. Alvy. We are going to be doing Chapter 1 exercises. Number 1 says, write an English sentence with understandable semantics but incorrect syntax. Write another sentence which has correct syntax but has semantic errors. Here's how you do that. Number 1. The first thing we're going to do is write a sentence that makes sense but has bad punctuation. Okay? Semantics, the meaning of the sentence will be good, but the syntax will be wrong. So I will write a sentence just off the top of my head. The black frog went to the lake. What's wrong with that sentence? Lake should not be capitalized. It should have a period. Okay? But it makes sense, right? Except for frogs are usually green. Oh well. Okay, so that's part A. The next one, we want a sentence that is syntactically correct but semantically wrong. The horse building shall never, period. Does that make any sense? The sentence doesn't make any sense at all. And it's missing parts of it. But the first letter's capitalized, it's got a period, it's a sentence, and it works. No real syntax errors. So that one's not too hard. Now for number 2. Number 2, the first thing it says is start a Python shell. So what program do we run when we start a Python shell? That's right, terminal. So make sure you run your terminal. There we go. I've got mine at homebrew, so it's green and black. Isn't that nice?
Are you recording right now?
Yeah. So it says start a Python shell. How do we start a Python shell? We type the name of the program that will run the interpreter. If we do the word by itself, it'll just run the interpreter. So now we're in the Python shell. Now it says type 1 plus 2, separated by spaces. Then hit return. Python evaluates this expression. We just typed in an expression. It prints the result and then prints another prompt. What does the prompt look like? The prompt is the 3 angle brackets, right angle brackets. I call them alligators. Arrows. They look like arrows, yeah. So we have another prompt. Okay. Now it says star is the multiplication operator and double star is the exponentiation operator. It wants us to experiment by entering different expressions and recording what is printed by the Python interpreter. And it wants to know what happens if we use the /, which is the division operator. And it asks us, are the results what we expect explained? So we're going to do some experimentation. Okay, so let's make some more expressions. What happens if we do 5 times 20? What should that return? 100, good. 5 star star double star, that will do 2. Do you get what the double star operator is supposed to be? It's exponents, right. They had a really big word, exponentiation, to scare you away. And all that means is exponents, like 5 squared. So 5 double star 2 is the same as saying 5 squared. So this should return what? 25. Okay. Let's do a little more complicated expression. Let's do 8 times 2 plus 7 star star 3. See what happens. 359. Okay. All right. So I think we get a handle. It's pretty obvious. Multiplication, exponents, that's not hard. Let's throw in the division operator, like it says in the problem. Let's say 20 divide 4. What's 20 divide 4 going to be? 5. That's easy. Let's change it up a little bit. How about 18 divided by 100? What should that be? 0. Now everybody knows in mathematics 18 divided by 100 is always 0, right? What's missing? The remainder. Very good. We should always type the spaces. It just looks better that way. You don't have to. We can experiment with that. Let's experiment without the spaces. 18 divide 100. Same thing. Okay. So we figured out, we did a few experiments, and we figured out what about the division operator? We don't get any report about the remainder or the decimal portion, right? 18 divided by 100 should be 0.18. Right? 18%? All right. This is how I want you to record your answers. When you do experiments inside the shell, I want you to highlight all the prompts and the results that you see. Highlight all those. Copy them, Command-C, and then you can paste them into your document. Okay, there's a trick you can use in Text Wrangler so you can comment all this stuff out so that Python doesn't try to run it in case we write any scripts in here. If you go up to, if you highlight the text you want to comment, you can say, go to the text menu and say comment selection, and it will not do anything. Why? Right now it doesn't know that it's a Python document. How do I tell Text Wrangler it's a Python document? I need to save it as a .py file. So I'm going to say chapter 01 exercises.py. We want to save it as a .py. Once it's a .py, then Text Wrangler treats it as a Python file. Now if I go up and I say comment, it knows Python comments are pound symbols. Every line that starts with a pound symbol will be commented out. So I can still write a program in here. All this text I can read as the programmer, but the interpreter will skip it because it's commented. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 3. We're on number 3 now. Yeah, you save it as a .py file.
But you only save that thing.
Number 3. Okay, we're still in the shell. Now, number 3, it wants us to type 1 space 2 and then hit return. This time it has to have a space. If it doesn't have a space, what would it be? 12. So 1 space 2 and hit return. Oh! Python tries to evaluate the expression, but it can't because the expression is not syntactically legal. It's a syntax error. Instead, it prints, and it shows us in the chapter, it shows us what we should have seen in our interpreter. Does yours match what it says in the book? I hope so. Okay. In many cases, Python indicates where the syntax error occurs. It's trying to point to it with the caret, but it's not always right. And it doesn't give you very much information about what is wrong. So for the most part, the burden is on you to find your own syntax errors and to learn the syntax rules to be able to know the syntax. In this case, for this problem, Python is complaining because there is no operator between the numbers. Do you guys know what I mean when I say the word operator? In the previous problem, what was the operators we used? Times, plus, exponent. Those are operators because they operate on values. Okay, so part 3 says, or exercise 3 says, write down 3 more examples of strings that will produce error messages when you enter them at the Python prompt. Explain why each example is not valid Python syntax. Okay, so let's see. We already know the hello world program, right? We could say print hello Alvi world, and it will print it. But let's try this one first. It says we want 3 examples, so this will be our first example. What if I open up my quotes and type something but forget to end my quotes? That seems like a syntax error, right? Let's test it. And yes, it is. Syntax error. EOL. What does EOL mean? Can you guess? End of line. End of line. So it went to the end of line and it didn't see a quote to end the string, hello Alvi world. And so it's called a string literal when you have text inside quotes. And so it complained because we didn't do the proper syntax. Okay, so there's one example. So let's copy that and put that into our assignment. Okay. So part 3, I'll put the results of my first example. I'm going to comment those out. Okay, another example. What would another example be of a syntax error we can think of? 13 plus what? 13 plus nothing. Good. So we have a number on one side of the operator but not on the other. Let's see what happens. Oh, invalid syntax again. It doesn't really have any useful instructions to help us solve it, but obviously this operator has to have a number on both sides. So let's record this one. We'll comment it out. So we need a third example. Okay. Any ideas for a third example of a syntax error? Should we use numbers? Let's see. Oh, I got a good one. How about we do a number like 32? That's Carl Malone's number. What if we do 2 operators in a row, separated by spaces, plus times 78? Syntax error again. Okay, so you have to follow the syntax rules. So you can have examples, any examples you want for your exercises. Those are the 3 I did. And I just commented those out.
But so a text string